On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very exclusive treat. He's a dynamic spoken word artist, poet, rapper, filmmaker, and global speaker, just to name a few. He originally pursued a career in hip hop and found himself suffering in his egoic pursuit, only to reinvent himself, shifting towards creating his epic motivational spoken word films about environmentalism, race, work life balance, spirituality, and more. He's widely recognized in Oprah's Super Soul 100, Forbes 30 Under 30, and others, and his content will penetrate your soul. His YouTube videos have received over 2 billion views, and his ability to creatively connect through content is second to none. He's here to teach you how to hack your mindset to live your best and most meaningful life. He's just a juggernaut in all facets of life and a terrific human being. Please welcome the dynamic, wise, creative, and handsome, the soulful and abundant Prince EA. How you doing, Prince?
Best introduction I've ever gotten. Wow. Thank you, Craig. I'm excited to be here, bro. Really excited. Thank you for that intro. And I'm looking forward to conversing with you on this next hour, man. Let's do it.
Hell yeah. And I just want to be fully transparent right now. You and I connected before we hit record, and I was kind of giving you some context on my background, and we're going back and forth. And that was the most like into a conversation I've ever had before we started. So we're just going to pick off right there. And I was telling you a little about my journey, and you mentioned the hero's journey and answering the call. And I think there's so many people out there, brother, that know that they're here for something more than they're currently doing, and you know a thing or two about reinvention and so forth. What can you suggest to someone that knows that they're here for more, but maybe they just think it's a little bit too late, or that all that good stuff, the abundance, is just not in the cards for them?
Yeah. Wow. Well, um, I think there's so many successful people that have what you just called it, which is imposter syndrome. Not believing you're worthy. That's the ultimate virus of today. It's unworthiness. And there's many ways to approach that one. Obviously, the first, we can approach it from the ego level, and just because I think my work deals with ultimately detaching from the ego. They say the ego is a great servant but a horrible master. The ego is a great servant but a horrible master. And however, I think before people can detach from the ego and squish the ego, they might need to expand the ego. And what I mean by that is increase their self-worth, increase their confidence, increase their ability to increase their desire to want to change. So what you asked is, how do I help people really discover what's within, even though they might have limiting beliefs that are blocking them from achieving it? It all starts with mindset. In order for things to get better, you have to get better. This was my whole story, the realization that there is no world out there. The world is in here. And right now, for the listeners, I'm pointing to my mind, right? There's one earth, but there's billions of worlds, and we all live in each individual world. And so before we try to change the world out there, we must change the world within, because once there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. So my advice would first be looking within, understanding how the mind works, how negative thoughts happen, because that's all it is. Success is really about transcending negative thoughts. And I love that word, transcending.
Same.
Transcending, ending the trance. It's all about dehypnotizing yourself for success. So what does that mean? That means your input determines your outlook. So just like your story and my story, we started feeding ourselves sustenance and nutrients that could help us see the world differently. We don't just eat and digest food with our mouths. We also do it with our minds, right? There's a reason they call it food for thought. And you could either be taking in information or taking in inflammation. And, that inflammation is the negative, the toxic stuff that we constantly fill our minds with. And if we want information, then we got to take in good, positive, things, different type. For me, one of the most, and a lot of people don't understand the power in this type of therapy, but the most powerful therapy that I found in dealing with negative thoughts is a therapy called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And I'll just briefly explain it. I actually call it crushing bad thoughts, CBT, crushing bad thoughts. When you study CBT, you'll learn there's a list of 10 what's called cognitive distortions, right? Ways, I also call this stinking thinking, ways in which we create our own suffering, we create our own limitations. And I suggest people to Google the cognitive distortions, print it out, put it on your refrigerator, and whenever you have a negative thought, look at this list. It's a list of 10. One of them is all or nothing thinking. Another one is shoulding or masturbating. I call it shoulding yourself or masturbation. When you put a should or must on reality instead of a preference, we suffer, right? So, in order for things to get better, you have to get better. And it all starts with the mind and feeding yourself really good time-tested strategies to improve your mindset.
This is unbelievable. I mean, I just have like a dopamine hit. This is where we drop the mic, but we're just getting warmed up. So many things to unpack. And I love how you make a lot of this stuff so digestible because you have like little cool like puns or nicknames that you can't forget. And so much to unpack there. And it's so true, right? The roots create the fruits. Everything starts from inside. And just to give you some context, because the reason why, and just to be clear, I wouldn't have changed the thing because I believe divine timing and so forth. And one of the reasons why I've probably been successful in a short amount of time is because it happened when I was at the right place mentally and emotionally and all that stuff. But I think the reason why I spent so much time underachieving or whatever you want to call it in a bad spot is because I was so invested in this story, right? This matrix, this movie, if you will, thinking that this was it for me. And other people that I saw happy or loving what they do, like that just wasn't in the cards. I was attached to it. In the pandemic or the lockdown, when I took a second to realize, can I choose something else? Can I choose a different story? Right? Can I choose a different movie? That was inner stuff. And then I started to think differently, and my thoughts were more empowering, and they kind of created, not kind of, they did, they created more empowering and constructive and productive beliefs and so forth. And then I saw opportunities where I once saw limitations. Everybody has the ability to reassess if they take a second. And I like to say that mindfulness is the portal to expansion. Sometimes it just takes being super present, like we are right now in this conversation, not worried about anything else. Would you agree with that? Mindfulness is key to becoming aware.
that's, that's it. Well, that's 1,000-year-old practice, the practice of mindfulness. And one of the proponents of mindfulness, I would say, in today's modern world is a guy named Eckhart Tolle. And Eckhart Tolle, but he doesn't like the word mindfulness. Because if you look at the word mindful, I kind of tend to agree with him because mindfulness can be, what do you mean mindful? Really, it's about awareness, being aware. That starts with the breath, coming into the present moment. The breath is the doorway to the moment and to awareness. But absolutely, I mean, there's, for all the science geeks like me, there's so many studies on mindfulness and its impact and stress levels, success. The more mindful the CEOs are in companies, the more money they make. Like there's countless studies on the benefits of mindfulness practice, and it definitely is a hack if you want to really take control of your life, because you can't change what you're not aware of. Mindfulness allows you to come to this present moment and observe. It all starts with the thought. It starts and ends with the thoughts. We make it sometimes, the people in personal growth and development, we make it so complicated, but everything that you see right now was created out of the human mind. Everything. Everything. It was a thought and then a thing, right? So if we want to create a better world, then it starts in the mind. It starts with seeing it in the mind, right? A creative visualization, and then manifesting that in reality, right? You gotta, some people say fake it till you make it. I say be it, and then you can see it. You got to be it, right? It starts with being, because you got to be before you can do, and do before you can have, right? So let's not forget about action, the doing. I think a lot of people in the spiritual communities, it's all about meditation, and that's cool. But there is an action that comes from that. But it does start with being it, and then you gotta go and do, right.
This is so good, brother. And I want to acknowledge you. Like, this is one of those conversations where I don't even want to waste a second. And it's so interesting. Like, be it, and then you'll see it. Is that what you said? Yeah, because I think that most people think, and I was one of them. So I speak from contrast, that once you get the things, right? Once you become the best rapper or the most successful, whatever the case would be, then you'll have the feelings of happiness and fulfillment. The irony is you can activate that frequency. And then ironically, once you're in that state of joy, of being and so forth, then you end up manifesting the things that you thought you needed to feel that way anyway. Took me 35 years to figure this out.
Well, I mean, well, perfect timing.
Yes, yes.
Perfect timing. A lot of people know about the law of attraction, but what you just explained was the law of assumption, right? The law of assumption was created, which I think is more powerful than the law of attraction. It was created by Neville Goddard, man named Neville Goddard, and he talked about really not even because when you get into a desire, a wanting frequency, a lot of times you push things away, right? Right. When you run after something, it runs away from you. But when you can become a magnet, when you can change your frequency, then things chase after you, right? So it really is about assuming that you already are where you want to be fully. And when your mind comes in and tries to get logical, you can just kind of dismiss that and say, no, here I am, I already have it, and the actions that I'm going to produce are in the interest of my best and highest self, and you will become inevitably your best and highest self.
Yeah, this is so important because, and again, something I recently learned is that it's not the destination, because once you hit that mountain or you get to the peak, just by backed on human nature, you're always thinking about the next climb, whatever the case may be. So you fall in love with the process, the journey, and you start to become the type of cat who is capable of achieving those goals, those audacious goals, those destinations and stuff. And once you realize that you can become them first, and then you'll end up being what you just said, you'll end up being the vibrational match, the magnet for those things. Revolutionary stuff right here.
That's it. That's it. And and then there's the other side of it too, because a lot of people I know, they fall into the trap of ambition, and they're never satisfied. Right. So that's another thing. People are always trying to climb that next mountain. But when you can be fully content, right, with your feet on the ground where you are, I think that's super important, right? Like a lot of times we want what we don't have and have what we don't want, and that creates suffering. But what if we wanted what we have and didn't want what we didn't have? We would have peace. And I always say you are exactly where you need to be, and you can get better. You are perfect as you are, and you can improve. So it's walking this almost duality, this almost this paradox, is being comfortable in the paradox of loving where you are and also knowing there are greater things ahead.
Yeah, this is so good. And it's funny because I didn't have a specific agenda of having you on the show. I just knew we'd create magic and provide such value for the audience. Of course, I want to talk about all the exciting stuff you have going on now. But this conversation, like, this is what I needed years ago. It's a 9-figure conversation if people apply it. And I want to make a suggestion to the audience. We're about 4 million now and climbing. If you're not familiar with Prince EA, my biggest suggestion, do a deep dive, play catch up, check out all his content on all his platforms. What I think is most valuable is we just have an unbelievable conversation. And I was looking at your content as I would anyway, even if we weren't having this conversation. And one of the many things that you said that really penetrated my soul, and it's kind of what we're talking about now, is everybody dies, but not everybody lives. And I can honestly say, when I stepped into my reinvention, the biggest catalyst was I did this eulogy exercise where I pictured who and what would be said at my funeral a couple of weeks down the line. And the truth of the matter is I was dying a slow death, and all I needed to do was change everything, right? And so I did, and that comment was so beautiful, and I'd love to hear why it's so important to you as well.
Oh man, wow. You know, I think death is the ultimate life hack. I think it's always been, right? Historically, I mean, you got the Romans, the Stoics, the Greeks, they always had a skull on their desk side, right? And this skull, which a lot of people know, maybe some don't know, in Latin, it translates to memento mori. Remember that you will die. Um, it's coming for all of us, right? Doesn't matter how fast you run, how far you run. You know, death catches up when it's time for your appointment. And a lot of people are afraid of this thought. But when you can embrace death, like I said, it's the greatest life hack because it allows you to truly live. You know, the people in Bhutan, one of the happiest places in the world, they say in order to be a truly happy person, you must think about death 5 times a day. Because when you realize your impermanence, you realize that there's no time to waste on the nonsense, the BS, the stress. Like you really have to answer that call and go into what your gifts are, and which is service, right? We talked about the hero's journey. The etymology of the word hero is servant. When you actually look at the word, it means servant. Like that's what we're all here to do, is to serve. So using death, I really think has allowed me to create, because when I've created some of my biggest content that I've ever done, 100 million views, 200 million views,
No big deal.
I asked myself, I was like, Prince, if this was the last video you're ever going to make, what do you say? What do you create? And when you get into that mindset, there's no more ego, because this process kind of dissolves the ego. It dissolves the need to capitalize on this and on that and the funnel people, and it's really just about the power of the content and the message itself. It becomes pure. So I really do think death is a big life hack that we should think about more often. We should put death on our left shoulder as a friend, and really use it. Because like you said, everybody dies, but not everybody lives. But if we use death, we can truly live. I'm a big fan of not just Western science, but also Eastern spirituality. And I read a book some years ago called the Tibetan Book on Living and Dying. It's a beautiful book about the dying process and about the power of death. Well, in this book, they say that of all footprints, those of the elephant are supreme, and of all mindfulness meditations, that upon death is supreme. To really use death and realize nobody's last wish was, I wish I spent more time in the office, right? Like this life is so precious, it's so fragile. I literally just last week went to a celebration of life for a friend of mine. And it was a super beautiful and sad event. And also a reminder that, hey, here I am, here we are. Let's make the most out of this time, because we don't know when we'll see our last sunset.
It's the beautiful paradigm shift of the word scarcity, right? Scarcity could be powerful if you use it in the sense that, I don't know when you and I might have this conversation to connect again, or I don't know when I might be able to speak to my parents again. And as a result, you treat every moment like it could be your last. Just as when you create your unbelievable content, you think, if this was the last content I created, what would I want it to be? Right. And I think that's a cool paradigm shift, because when most people hear the word scarce, they automatically assume something negative. But like you said, putting death on your shoulder kind of keeps you in that moment.
I tell people all the time, and If you want to go on a date to reconnect with your partner, don't go to the movies, don't go to the theme park, go to the graveyard and walk around. Walk around. I guarantee you, you will love that person tenfold more when you're done. When you see the couples, when you see the memorials, when you see the birth date and the death date, and you see the dash in between, and you recognize that it's that dash. There is our life, is our expression. Lisa Nichols, I think, says, "Make your dash dance."
Yeah, that sounds like something she would say. That's beautiful. And I'm getting a little emotional, if I'm being honest, because I just pictured me and my fiance walking in the graveyard and looking at a tombstone and seeing 1940, whatever the case may be, to 2023, and that dash, that's our expression, right? It's such a short trip. Forget about like spirit and soul and all that different conversation, just based upon this short human experience, if you will. It's a short trip.
Yeah, you'll see babies, you'll see 2 years old. You'll see the years from 2020, 2022. Like, it's death comes when it comes, and nobody can predict it. And that's the beauty of life, though. That's why a woman would never accept plastic roses. The beauty is because the roses, they're gonna die, and that's what makes it beautiful.
Yeah. Oof. I'm just like, I never done this before. I'm taking a second to just process. That's an awesome analogy. I love this, and I want to pull out extract a couple of your hits, because I think they're so good and so powerful and meaningful for the audience. Something that I saw you write, and it hit home for me, is that we don't choose dreams; the dreams choose us. And I imagine there's some people listening that don't quite understand exactly what that means.
Mm, yeah, it's that call, right? It's that inner call that everybody feels. It's, sometimes we block it out, right? We block it out with distractions, with noise, with limitations that society puts on us. But we all have that call within us, and we know what it is. And the closer we can get in touch with our own minds, then we have the ability to express that out, right? So we don't choose the dreams, they really do choose us. um and I think it's so important to do that inner work in order to discover what it is. Sometimes the call is loud, and sometimes it's quiet. um but when you can be quiet, right? They say, I think it was Rumi, he says, silence is the voice of God, the language of God. All else is poor translation. The more we're silent with ourselves, the more that it is revealed what we're here to do. Um, because it's so, it's easy. I call it the difference between a good idea and a God idea, right? A good idea is like, oh man, we're doing good things in the world, we're making money, we're affecting. But a God idea is what you were here to do, what you were meant to do. You don't want to live a life where you climb the ladder and you get to the top like, yeah, but you realize I was leaning against the wrong wall, right? So it's so important to recognize the difference between ego goals and deep spirit goals, right? So um I believe that we all have a gift, we all have a unique perspective, and like I said, it's only when we can become silent. Whether, and okay, how do you, people say, okay, Prince, how do I become silent? There's a lot of different ways. You can go on a retreat, you can go to, a Vipassana meditation retreat, or you can just take 10 minutes at home, before you go to bed or when you wake up in the morning, and just be still. Just be still. Or if you're an action driven person, just start saying yes to life. I had the pleasure of speaking with Jack Cornfield. He came on my podcast a week ago. Jack Cornfield is, oh man, he is a world renowned Buddhist teacher and author. And he said, He said there's a beauty in following accidents, and following the accidents, right? Following the randomness. Um, a lot of times people say, "Oh man, Prince, how do I know? How do I know if this is the thing that I'm meant to do?" Well, just try it. And I guarantee you, if it's not the thing, it'll be the thing that leads you to the thing.
Yeah, that's so good. And that's something I've experienced too, right? And if it doesn't work out, you're being protected, propelled, and promoted to something greater. But you have to get in the arena. You have to be available, so to speak. I love the way you word it. If it's not the thing, it'll be the thing that leads to the thing.
Yeah. 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 Experiment. You can't play it safe. Helen Keller says security is a myth, it's a superstition. It doesn't exist in nature. I think playing it safe is the most risky thing we can do in life. We really do have to take calculated and risks in our lives, and be able to surrender, right? To surrender to the unknown, the unspeakable, the unseen, right? So we all get into the Uber. We don't know the Uber driver. We might look at the ratings, but we trust it. We trust that they'll take us to our destination. We board a flight. Commercial. Some people might fly private. We trust the pilot. We might not know him, but we trust him to take us to our destination. But somehow we doubt the source energy, the universe, which created us to take us to where we need to be. One of my favorite mantras, and I think this might be the king of all mantras, because if you understand this, I don't see how you could suffer. And that mantra, there's a story behind it, but I'll tell you the story another time. But the mantra itself is, all is well and unfolding as it should. All is well and unfolding as it should. If we can this is the ultimate mindset, because once you recognize, once you live in this mindset, you realize things, as they say, they don't happen to you, they all happen for you. All is well and unfolding just as it should. This is trust. This is trust, but like I said, we trust the Uber driver, we trust the pilot. Trust in that energy that created you.
Yeah. And you were saying a little bit earlier, like it won't always be loud, right? The voice, whatever the case may be. When I heard those whispers in the lockdown, I was quiet, probably the most quiet I've ever been in my life. So I was able to hear it. And when I did hear it, all I had was 20 seconds of courage, but that's all I needed. And I leaned into that and I raised the volume, and essentially I never looked back. That's all you really need, right? It's just 20 seconds of courage. Lean into that. Um, but like you said, the Uber driver, the pilot, I mean, those are like physical vehicles that could, put your life in danger. But the divine energy, the thing that created everything, gotta listen to that as well. It prioritize
Creating your physical vehicle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard though, but right, in all the religions, right, they say uh, walk by faith, not by sight, right? And it's powerful, and it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. I talked to a girl last week. She says, "Yeah, I trust God, but I'm like, there's no but after that."
Yeah.
It really is that total. How do you trust fall with the universe? But when you can do that, listen, you really start to live, because I think there's only two choices we ever make in life. That's fear and love, right? Every choice comes down to fear versus love. And fear is a shrunken, an atrophied vibration. It's negative, it's dark. But love is light. And we all want it. We all want love. That's the thing that connects. We all want that. So to try to make every decision, to try to choose love, especially when it comes to how you're gonna live your life, that's the most compassionate act I think a human being can make.
So good, brother. So true. This is so good. I was watching one of your videos and you were describing a spiritual awakening. And it's funny because I believe I had a spiritual awakening in the beginning of lockdown when I felt these creative divine downloads, and the rest is history. But I was coming up with what I thought my own definition was. But when you were describing it, I mean, you could check every single thing off the list. It was exact, it was precise. And even like not having much in common anymore with some people that used to be very close to you, just everything. And I was curious, like, where did you come up with how you describe to be a spiritual awakening? Is that from your own experience?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's from my own experience, and it's from the experiences of, all the awakened masters that I've studied, um, past and present. It's scary, it can be scary. Um, but it comes down to really answering that call that within. I mean, we started this whole conversation with the hero's journey. This is Joseph Campbell, and he wrote a Joseph Campbell, who anybody doesn't know, he inspired George Lucas to create Star Wars. And he
Really?
wrote, yeah, 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 yeah. He wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And his whole theme, and you see, right, if you look at every movie is pretty much the same movie. Every popular movie, right? The Matrix is the same as Star Wars, is the same as Hunger Games. Like it's the same archetype structures. And it's the same thing in your life, right? The hero oftentimes is faced with a choice, a danger, um, and Lion King too, right? That follows the model as well. You're
Simba.
faced with, yeah, yeah, Simba's whole journey.
Yeah.
His father died. He didn't know what to do. He went to a foreign land, and he had a teacher, right? The who was the rabbit? Rafiki.
Yep.
That was the guru. So all of these movies, they mirror our lives, right? They mirror our lives. It's the hero's journey, and recognizing that we are the hero, and sometimes we have to leave our birth land or the land that's familiar to go into the unfamiliar, and that's where we can develop the skills and the abilities and the gifts that were already hidden. So all these movies, I guess, to bring it back to your question about what is awakening, all of these movies, they depict what the awakening process is. So if you want to know what the awakening process is, watch The Matrix.
Yeah.
um, I love Bruce Lipton. He's like the father of epigenetics. He wrote a book called The Biology of Belief. He said The Matrix, that ain't a movie. It's a documentary.
Yeah.
So what I define as awakening is um is becoming aware first of um I think there's different levels of awakening, right? Some people call it being woke, right? And that's one level of awakening, where you start to become aware of how the socioeconomic structures in the world operate. You see the corruption in media or in politics, right? That's one level of awakening. But I think that's a baby step level. I think true awakening really is awakening to your own mind, right? Most people believe that they are their own thoughts, right? They believe the voice in their head is them. But what I feel true awakening is separation from the you, or what you call you, and the thoughts, right? And the only way, I mean, there's many ways. Some people say dance can bring people into this state. Scientists, they might call it the flow state. The Japanese samurai, they call it this state mushin. The Taoists call it one with Tao, but essentially it's going back home to your original state, and being able to be the pure witness of all thoughts that come and go. Right. This is what I call I believe probably is the highest form of awakening. There's deeper levels that come after that, but this is what I truly think it means to wake up.
Yeah, and I was thinking about like being unplugged from the matrix and all that stuff. It reminds me of like a little baby, right? I have a little nephew, my brother, my best friend's kid. Like he's always so happy and joyful, and he hasn't been beaten down by life yet, right? He hasn't had his perspective distorted yet. It's so pure. And when you were describing that, it reminded me of thinking like going back to almost like that, where you can look at thoughts and realize that thoughts are not facts, and you can choose a second thought.
Love that. Love that. That's huge. That's huge. I mean, that is on. Remember, I told you about the CBT, the cognitive distortion list. That's on the list, right? People, a lot of us believe just because I feel it is true. No, it's not true, because every feeling was born out of a thought. And if your thought is wrong, then the feeling is wrong, right? It's still a true feeling, sure, but it's misguided, right? So I love that, and I love the point that you bring up with you say your nephew.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
with it, I mean, that's it. I mean, all the traditions, the Buddhists, for instance, they talk about this state called beginner's mind, right? The beginner has an advantage over the expert, right? Because the expert sees only one possibility. The beginner can see many, right? I think, I'm not a Christian, but I've read the Bible, and I think it says only when you become like young children can you enter the kingdom of heaven. What are they talking about? It's, that they're talking not about being childish, but being childlike. Seeing the world as if you're a baby opening his eyes for the first time. That's pure seeing, right? A child, man, they laugh hundreds of times a day, hundreds of times, 300, 400, 500. I think the average adult laughs about 12, if that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite thing to do, or at least one of them, is usually when it happens with my brother, my fiance, is have an uncontrollable belly laugh where I'm just dying, losing it. That's the best. It's such a state of joy where nothing else matters. And I love this conversation for so many reasons, but specifically why I wanted to bring up awakening is because, as you described it, like going back home and realizing that most of the disempowering thoughts, which are creating these negative feelings and these lowered states, and then ultimately the results in your life, once you become aware of that, you can do something about it. You could transform from reactive to proactive. And it took, I used to have like bursts of this, but I was never able to put it together. And then ultimately I'd succumb to the negativity and so forth, and 100% on me. Maybe I didn't do enough work. But when I finally had that awakening, and I still have my moments, just to be clear, still working on it. We all are.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah. Um, but this is the stuff right here, brother. Like these conversations, I can't get enough of it. It's just, it excites me so much because I know what's possible, and
Mm,
I want everybody to feel that.
Well, it's important. I mean, the Dalai Lama, he said, if every child learned meditation, we could end all wars and violence within a single generation. I think he's right. If you look at, there is no society out there. This society is an abstract concept, right? There's individuals. There's people, right? Society is a group of individuals. So that's why I think the only revolution we're talking about is the individual revolution, the awakening in the individual, right? It starts with the individual and then spreads out to the group, and then to the family, then the group, then the community, and then the city, and then the country, and then the world, right? So, but it starts at the micro, and then it can expand to the macro, right? So it's like, but it really is coming back to our natural state. There's a quick story. I made this story on Instagram. I don't know if you saw it, but there's this guru. His name is Ramana Maharshi, and he's super super famous. I mean, he was legit. Let's say. And anyway, there was this disciple who traveled thousands of miles to go visit Ramana Maharshi. Oh, I think I lost you for a second.
You'll
Can you
never
hear me?
lose me. You'll never lose me, brother.
Ah. Touche, touche, touche. So Ramana Maharshi had this disciple, and his disciple, he traveled all the way from across the other side of the world to India, several planes, several buses and cars to get to the feet of his master. And he looks up at Ramana Maharshi and he says, "Master, can you tell me who I am? Please tell me who I am." And Ramana, he says, "Go back to where you came." And everybody around who heard him say this was like, "What? How rude, how insensitive. Go back." This man traveled thousands of millions of miles to be under, at his feet. He says, "Go back to where you came." How insensitive. But what Ramana meant when he said, "Go back to where you came," was go back to that state before the concepts, before the limiting beliefs, right? Before the ideas, right? Go back to go back to when you were a child. And even before that, right? Go back to where you came. We all came from that place, right? So this is it. And I think I tell you this story because if we can all go back and unlearn all the crap that the world, society, school has taught us, we can unlearn all that and go back to where we came, we will realize that we are the same consciousness. We talk about race, what we are is before race. We talk about gender, what's your pronoun? This is before that. This is deeper than even the body, even the fact that we're human. There's a consciousness and energy that exists. And once we can identify as that, then we can, and the one of the pathways is through meditation, then we can get to the point where we can respond, not react, right? I tell people that respond, don't react. Okay, what's the difference? Well, all right, you go to you're feeling sick one day. You go to the doctor and the doctor gives you some medicine, right? You take the medicine, 2 tablets twice a day, and you go back to the doctor the next week and the doctor says, "Uh-oh, I don't know, your body is having a reaction. This isn't good. Here, take this medicine and come back to me in a week." So you take the medicine and go back to the doctor. He says, "Okay, this is good. Your body's responding to the medicine." So when we can get less reactive and more responsive, that's when we can get into we can have more control over life and not be a victim of life, right? We can be a victor, right? We don't have to be a warrior. We can be a warrior of life and really get into our essence. And from that space of peace, we can make better decisions in our health, in our lives, with our relationships, in our families, at our jobs, and in the world.
So good. This is unbelievable. And when I think of reacting, I think of like an emotional response that's probably not thought out. And when I think of responding, I think of like, let me pause and just take a second and be a little bit more intentional with what comes out or with what comes next.
100%. 100%. That's it. Well said.
Yeah.
And it just takes a pause. You don't have to you don't have to go to the Himalayan mountains and sit on the top of Arunachala and meditate, until you grow a long beard. You can just take one conscious breath every day. Just one breath. Just come to the present moment one time in your day. And what you'll notice is you'll start to do it more. You'll do it more. And then when something crazy happens at your job, it'll just be a reflex to take that breath. There was a guy, his name was W. Clement Stone. He was good friends of Napoleon Hill. I'm sure you know
Yeah.
about him. He wrote several books. The Master Key to Success, I think, is one of them. Success. He co-wrote books like Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude with Napoleon Hill,
Great one.
who wrote Think and Grow Rich. Anyway, W. Clement Stone was one of the most prominent and also wealthiest businessmen of his time. And W. Clement Stone had a tendency to say 2 words when things happen. He would say, "That's good." Right? So when things were crazy at work, when everybody was losing their head and anxiety was at a high, he would come in and look at the problem and say, oh, that's good. And this was his success secret, because when he said that's good, he would look for the good in it. And he could only say that's good if he was responsive and not reactive, right? He had a mindset of gratitude and not blame, not worry, right? So I say if you can say that's good to everything that happens in your life, you will become less reactive for sure, because it'll trick your mind into finding the good within it. And as Napoleon Hill said, right, every problem has within it a seed of equal or greater benefit.
That's right. Bye. I'm laughing because I just love you. This is so good. That's good. And just gives you perspective and it's
Yeah.
aligning. And isn't that life? How so many people can look at the same thing and have totally different responses, reactions, judgments, all of it. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's the beauty. That's the beauty of it. I mean, that's why it's so important to polish your mirror, right? To because if you look at a mirror that's all rusty, that's dirty, you just don't see the world or yourself clearly, right? And the mirror in our minds, right? We have to polish it, right? We have to polish it from the limiting beliefs and the judgments and things that my mama said when I was 7 years old, and my dad and my first grade teacher who wanted to hold me back. We got to polish all of that stuff off. Boom. So that we could see the world clearly.
yeah, it's so good. So much more to talk about. We'll bring you back for a sequel. With
Let's
the
do it.
Yeah, hell yeah, brother. With the community exploding and so forth, the audience is very loyal and engaging. What's the best way for all of them to support you? And also, what are you personally most excited about of all the crazy and awesome things that you have going on?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, first of all, Craig, thank you so much for having me here. This is I want you to come on mine because I want to ask you these questions. I'm so curious about your story and your mindset and how you're able to be as successful as you are and as you have been, um, not just with the things that money can buy, but with the things that money can't buy, because that's what I call true success, right? So for
You're
me,
done.
yeah, yeah. For me, you can stay in touch with me, social media. I mean, this is kind of the bread and butter for me, putting out content, films. I also have a podcast that people can go and listen to. It's called Sauna Sessions, where I interview guests inside of an infrared sauna and we sweat together. It's literally the hot seat. So we sweat, we really detox all the BS and we get to the root of a lot of issues, a lot of things. The podcast is all about healing. So that's Sauna Sessions. You can listen to it anywhere where you listen to podcasts. And what am I excited about? I'm excited about those things. I have a few cool things dropping soon. I have a companion journal, a gratitude journal that I'm releasing in the next few months. I have a mood journal that actually talks about cognitive behavioral therapy and really will allow people to transcend and to get through and eliminate negative mood states quickly and effectively within 2 minutes. So I'm
Keep
excited.
interject right there, brother. I want to let you know something that I learned from you from just now is I will never hear that word ever again and not say in my head trance and
That's it.
so thank
Yeah,
you for that.
yeah. Because there's so many trances that we live in. The language. Oh man, we can get into a whole thing about words and language. But the language, man. When you can change your language and when you can see through language, you can really get ahead of your reality. There was a movie. I don't know how much time we got, but I studied anthropology, physical biological anthropology, and I saw this movie a few years ago called Arrival. It's called, right? You seen this movie?
It was about aliens.
About aliens, yeah.
Yeah.
Aliens, they come down and then they bring in an anthropologist to a linguistic anthropologist to try to figure out how to communicate with the aliens. And so what happens is that she starts to learn the aliens' language. Her reality shifts, right? She starts to be able to see through the future. She starts to be able to, like, it's insane. And this is based on a real theory called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. When you change your language, your reality changes, right? Your language dictates how you view the world. So when you start saying different words, you don't say I have to do this when you can start saying I get to do this. When you see through different words, it definitely can give you an edge in the culture that you live in, that the language is founded upon.
Yeah.
Side note. But people can reach out to me, Instagram, YouTube, still creating content. I've got like I said, these journals coming out. I've got a life mastery course coming out soon. So yeah, just stay tuned. I haven't launched any specific dates, but I'm just excited to serve. And I love any and all feedback, compliments, complaints, criticism, because I want to, continue to figure out how I can serve and how I can speak to, people's pain points and where people are stuck. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And over more so than anything else, I'm trying to enjoy every moment. There's a saying, they say, make the day a masterpiece. And I love that. But my twist on it is make each moment a masterpiece. This is the motto that I try to live by, and what I really try to share with everybody who follows me and who listens and who pays attention to the things that I'm creating.
Yeah. I'm so excited to share you with some of my community who might not have been familiar. This whole hour flew by. It was a masterpiece for me. I hope you feel the same, brother. Just the beginning of the friendship. Hang out for a sec. I want to connect with you after. Prince, I want you to know you the definition of perspective, authenticity, and creativity. I could personally guarantee your best is yet to come. Keep on spreading your wings and leaving your mark on this world. So much love and respect for you. Thank you so much for stopping by and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets today.
My pleasure. You were a great conversationalist, man. I really enjoyed this. Let's do it again.
My man, that was incredible. I'm flying right now.
I love that, dude. I love that. I never get, you went deep, man. I never really get those questions, but it's like the most I think important thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Let's stay connected.
Yeah. What's your do you because I live in Europe, so WhatsApp is probably the best way to connect. But I'll follow you on Instagram and
Okay.
send me your number. Here, let me
Is
see.
it you on Insta? Or do you have like a team?
Nah, it's me.
Okay.
Man,
Cool.
so I took a year off
I know
and
you did.
paused my team and everything. So I'm just dipping my toe back in the water and trying to figure out the algorithms and all that good stuff. And but yeah, so it's all me.
Okay. Let's support each other there. And then you're in the States now, you said, right?
Been to States until mid-April.
Okay. So shoot me a text, so I have your number as well.
Okay.
And then when you're
Okay.
in Europe, we can communicate on WhatsApp.
Cool.
I'll give it
Cool.
to you. Let me know when you're ready.
What's your handle? Yeah.
Craig Siegel _ CLS.
Craig Siegel.
SIEGEL.
Got it. Beautiful, bro. I'm gonna text you now, bro.
Okay.
So much fun. So much fun. Congratulations on all this success, man. You're a great interviewer. You really know how to hold space and ask good questions. So I think your audience is gonna really love this one. Yeah, because you did a good job facilitating it.
Thank you so much for saying that, brother. Genuinely, I appreciate this so much. To be honest with you, I'm a lot better for this conversation. I know the audience will be too. And I'm really excited to build a friendship. Do you ever come out to New York?
Would maybe once a year, not too much, man. I miss it. I think I'm due for a trip.
Okay. Well, if
When
you
I do,
do,
I'm gonna hit you up, man. Are you ever on West Coast?
yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm traveling a lot now for speaking, and the book's coming out in August, so I imagine I'll be traveling even more. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let me know how I can support any of that stuff, man. The book, speaking, all of that. Any and all of it.
Yeah, I will, and I'd love to get on your show. And so,
Okay. Okay. Well, you coming by this month at all? Anytime in March or early
uh,
April or June or June. I'll be back in June.
you know what? I will create that opportunity.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Shoot me
Awesome.
a quick text so I have your number.
Okay. I got you. I'll do it now, bro.
Okay.
Much love, much love, much love, Craig. Have a good rest of your day, bro.
You too, brother.
All right. Peace.
Bye, Prince.